A tall, slender man with a slow pace, a smooth voice like smoke, and a magnetism that makes the world nod. Everyone knows Snoop Dogg, the hip-hop icon, just hearing his name. You're not merely a rapper. His shadow is too big for any artist to follow. He is an American cultural icon, the essence of the West Coast. Few know the terrible truth beneath those eager camera appearances. Snoop plunged into Hollywood turbulence a few years after his peak. One by one, loved ones left. 3 a.m. Calls bring unpleasant news and psychological issues no doctor can treat. The man who once made the world laugh and dance to every rap phrase is now fighting personal loneliness. What made America's meme king? Central to several disasters. Ready to touch Snoop Dogg's darkest secrets? 1. Snoop Dogg was born Calvin Cortazar Broadus Jr. in 1971 in Long Beach, California, when murder rates skyrocketed. A world with little possibilities and widespread violence. Calvin was the second of 3 brothers without a father. Before he was 3 months old, his father joined the Vietnam War Army and disappeared forever. After a heated disagreement, the stepfather's suggestion faded. Calvin relies on his mother and music in a world that might change. That boy has 2 distinct lives. Calvin helped his mother by singing in the choir, playing the piano, selling candies, and delivering newspapers. The boy's 6th-grade classmate Calvin could rap like DNA. His long face, gentle demeanor, and impish nature earned him the nickname Snoopy from his mother. Initially innocent, this term transformed hip-hop history. After leaving church, the world was dirty. In the past, every block in Long Beach was controlled by gangs. When every street corner is a war, children cannot be naive. Calvin had to acquire survival language despite his love of music. That's the only way to avoid victimization. The better the musician, the more legal issues. Broadus joined the famed East Side neighborhood Crips gang Rollin' 20. He was imprisoned for 6 months for narcotics possession shortly after graduating. He was jailed several times during the next 3 years for various offenses. He was sometimes imprisoned for killing a rival gang member. That was when so many young people lost their futures due to one mistake. At that time, joining gangs could cost you your life and your theatrical career. Snoop remained strong, a rarity in Long Beach at the time. Music was life-saving in prison. Snoop rapped for his other inmates to kill time, but offenders could see what he hadn't. You're not welcome. Go outside. You can't die here. His fixation with those words lasted years. Hip-hop's first opportunity to build legends began with rejection in the early 1990s. Record labels disregarded Snoop, and his friend Warren G. Distributed demos vanished. Both were practically used to being shut out in front of them. Until Party. Someone nodded along to each slow yet sly remark when Warren G. played the demo tape for the boisterous audience. The individual is Dr. Dre. He listened and saw ahead. The excellent thing, Dre remarked. Most hilarious was Dr. Dre calling Snoop to invite him to the studio. Snoop hung up thinking someone was trolling him. He wasn't sure it was Dre until the second call. When Snoop entered the studio to record Deep Cover in 1992, history altered. After that recording, he was indispensable to the Chronic. When his voice is heard, the music changes color. Next came Doggy Style. Cultural earthquake, roughly 1 million copies. It was the fastest-selling debut album to top Billboard in its first week. 1 year, quadruple platinum. A Long Beach child who escaped the cops now stands on top of the world, where magic lights fall. People feared fame at its apex. After being acquitted of murder in 1996, his name became well known in the gang world. He realized he wanted to be a musician, not a thug. So he left the underworld for the world stage. As the 2000s began, Snoop remade himself. He went from gangsta rapper to model father, tech entrepreneur, pop culture comedian, Martha Stewart's TV pal, and the adorable uncle who made the country giggle. The cruelties of life affect even stories. Double tragedy struck him in 2024. A past I won't disclose. 2024 is life testing. How many times can a heart break before stopping? Outsiders still proclaim Snoop Dogg the coolest dude alive, unfazed by anything. That year, he collapsed and shattered in a way no TV show or entertainment piece had ever discussed. A apparently pleasant morning brought Corey's stroke. After a few rings, quiet. Others see it as a bell. It felt like a gunshot to Snoop's ear. Corey, 24, had a major stroke. The girl who called him Pops in a beautiful voice and carried on his shoulders when she was terrified is now immobile in the emergency room. Lupus caused morning joint pain and purple spots throughout childhood. When she couldn't rise, no one can prepare for a stroke. Not a tear in the hospital. He tightened his grip on her hand, as if his warmth might bring her back. Snoop stood quite still in a hoodie and sunglasses. But sunglasses aren't fashionable to conceal sleepless nighttime dry red eyes. In the days that followed, he stopped going to bed, closed the door to Corey's room. All the family felt he desired silence. Snoop didn't eat, chat, or switch on the lights during his stay. He started uttering things that made the whole family tremble, so his wife called a psychologist. Want to go with her if she doesn't make it. The man who survived gang violence and a murder trial gasped like a child. People could hear him screaming so hard from his room some nights that he seemed out of breath. He fell to the floor clutching Corey's photos and repeating, "If only I could get sick for him." Facing a lifetime of firearms is easier than his daughter's immovable gaze. Before he could stand, his daughter's heart needed machines to beat. Just weeks later, Bing Worthington, his brother and closest confidant who had weathered every storm with him for 30 years, died abruptly. No warning, no signs, just one call. Bing's gone. Sometimes a two-word sentence breaks someone. The public saw Bing as a collaborator and behind-the-scenes figure. Snoop's got his youth left. Witness to every mistake, every gang escape, and every secret Snoop never spoke on stage. Only Bing doesn't require pretense. No need to channel Snoop Dogg. No bragdon needed. Do not be cool. Snoop lost his brother and the only guy who knew all your dirty secrets when Bing died. The world saw an Instagram post with a few thanks and a black and white photo, but not Bing's empty kitchen where he made coffee every morning. No sign of his cologne on the sofa. Messages were never returned. The screen revealed only the terrible, fateful word. For 30 years, Snoop has known death. However, friends, colleagues, and individuals he loved but didn't live with have died. Shot Tupac. No more Nate Dogg. DMX died. His heart is too heavy with pain. There's still distance. This time, no. Straight through the chest this time. It hit the two people he would protect till the end. Two names that shattered his world in weeks. People think celebrities have a crew to fret. Fame hides the suffering, however. Snoop still has to sign the contract, show up, and act fine since hundreds of people make a living off his image, and the Snoop Dogg brand cannot collapse just because Calvin is hurting. Outside, he grinned on chat shows, joked with Jimmy Kimmel, took photographs with fans, and attended Martha Stewart events. But inwardly, he felt like his body was slowly emptying. He entered the stage under brilliant lights, but every night he went to a dark room, checked his contacts for Bing and Corey, then switched it off. There were car nights. He drove aimlessly in Los Angeles without music, purpose, or location. Rappers from the same era said Snoop was never so quiet. Not composure, but a lack of words. He suffered 2 disasters in a row, revealing his lifelong worries. Fear of losing his child and biological family. Gang life didn't affect those 2 shortcomings. Money and fame couldn't buy salvation. He survived, but that pain resurrected his history, which he had forgotten for years. A fatherless childhood. The savagery of Long Beach nights when he thought everyone he loved would depart. The past returning with 2 phone calls was scarier than loss. 3. Past returns. 2024 dealt Calvin 2 unexpected knocks and brought him back to Long Beach, his childhood haunt. He thinks about Long Beach, but it's not on the map, where long-dormant scars awoke like savage animals. Outsiders only see Snoop Dogg lamenting his daughter's stroke and brother's death. But Calvin saw that string of disasters as a perfect duplicate of his childhood, losing his father, loved ones, and security. The 2024 fall was a lifetime fall. Most fans believe Snoop is resolved. A survivor of iron bullets, narcotics, courts, and murder. What else could defeat him? However, life is cruel. It always hits your weakest spot. Fame and money have never been Calvin's weaknesses. That's family. It took what the mafia and courts couldn't take from his lover in 2024. That year's loss mimicked his childhood pattern cruelly. Calvin was abandoned by his father at 3 months old. Not a single letter, explanation, or look back. That disappearance was Calvin's first cut, clouding his familial definition throughout his life. Calvin learned to accept terrible news growing up in Long Beach, where the late 1980s homicide rate was among the highest in California. You were shot yesterday. A neighbor was seized this morning after an acquaintance was arrested the day before. Damage in Long Beach never occurs alone. It came in pairs and chains, like rhythmic gunshots. In 2024, his brain reacted like a 17-year-old child sitting in a shabby East Side dwelling, hearing that another person had died. Having loved ones taken by life returned full force. People say time heals. Time only covers Calvin-style scars. It explodes when triggered. People close to Snoop know a secret he rarely shares. For years, he's worried that anyone I love will leave. Celebrities don't always worry about that. Childhood inherited PTSD. After his daughter nearly died and his brother died in 2024, that fundamental fear returned like a ghost. Ironically, America only sees Snoop, the hip-hop legend, pop culture's fun uncle, and the meme. Calvin was unnoticed when his family crumbled. The multi-traumatized Long Beach guy who had struggled with desertion all his life spoke up. This event and its memories harm him. His daughter's stillness reminded him of his mother wailing when his father departed. Hearing about his brother's death reminded him of his old buddies who were shot without saying goodbye. Current suffering compounded past pain. His chest was chained with iron. Fans inquired, why does Snoop crumble so quickly after fighting for years? He can survive with gangs and guns. Therefore, the answer is obvious. He was powerless due to his loved one's illness and death. Traffic laws cannot save your daughter from lupus. No freestyle verse can revive my brother. No charisma can mask his sadness after losing his love again. Calvin learned to fight gangs in court and media. All of Snoop Dogg's layers fell off before the hospital and the death call. The public never sees this psychological domino effect. Your prior triumphs didn't make you pain-free. It only adapted you to other suffering. Street gunfire, fast living, and dying young, but family pain. That's his armorless area. Calvin is nakedest there. Once the 2024 losses began, all childhood memories came flooding back. The feeling of everything vital passing through my fingers, which he had buried for 30 years, returned as vividly as the first day. A longtime fan said Snoop never forgot Long Beach, just accepted it. Long Beach returns in 2024 to collect. Childhood is a memory for many. Calvin believes childhood is locked. He left, but the chamber stayed. After the daughter collapsed, the brother departed and the room opened. No lights, no exit. Only the feeling of losing a loved one, which he thought he had avoided. But trauma remembers. It knows when to return. So the audience thought Snoop was abnormally silent. No more old jokes. No more fun live streams. America's beloved Uncle Snoop energy is gone. They weren't facing Snoop at that moment. That's Calvin, reliving something he spent half his life forgetting. The surface is just that. A bigger conflict lies beneath. Classic Snoop Dogg versus Calvin. The Broken Man 4. Mythical person. Every Snoop Dogg fan has felt this paradox, but few dare to say it. The more renowned, cool, and culturally iconic he is, the less he can display pain. Snoop Dogg, the hip-hop default laugh, is no longer a regular person. He is a cultural brand. Hip-hop uncle, who can make the studio chuckle with a fake shimmy. He had to hide his actual emotions, especially grief, like something forbidden in public. Sponsors want Snoop to be happy and comfortable, like he's floating on a cloud of smoke without stress or danger. Television shows need a quick-thinking, clever Snoop who can always make the audience laugh. Advertising contracts require a cold Snoop. Even with the globe blazing behind him, the man has a half-smile and a deep voice, as if everything will be okay. The market won't let you cry or collapse. Because if he displays indications of tiredness once, the contract will be jeopardized, the campaign will be delayed, and the brand will wonder if Snoop can still keep his vibe. So even if his life hits rock bottom, the audience doesn't notice. He may have just left his daughter's hospital ward with red eyes from lack of sleep. But on set, he had to wear dark glasses and a mask. He could have just heard about his brother's death, but the next day, he had to record ads and retain Hollywood's iconic smile. The system forces you to be that way, not because I wish to pretend. Fame goes beyond the spotlight. It's contract, an expectation. All a team's money falls on one person. When in pain, he collapses with others. The machine of dozens behind him might collapse. The public never sees Snoop Dogg cry. Not because he's stronger, but because you disguise it better. Rather than for flair, Snoop wears sunglasses to protect his red-prone eyes, owing to sleeplessness or after sobbing. He grinned half-heartedly as if life hadn't heard him because the world would inquire, "What's wrong with Snoop?" when he stopped smiling. He gave his predictable quip in every act since it was the only way to distinguish between Snoop, the star, and Calvin, the struggling man. He considers coolest man alive a sweet curse, not a compliment. Because the cooler someone is, the more people assume they must be okay, the more people believe you don't know how to be sad, and the more people forget that Calvin, the Long Beach boy, is still there, still has the emotional scars of his gang-ridden youth, and still has the worries of a father, brother, and breadwinner. Cool people are tougher to understand. His coolness made him an icon, but it also stopped him from being vulnerable. The year 2024 arrives. 2 straight losses surprised him. His daughter was dying, and his brother died abruptly. Those occurrences hurt him and made the Snoop Dogg disguise feel heavy. Why you smile on dark days is questioned. Because if he doesn't laugh, he'll collapse, and if you fall, the world will see. It was a subtle tragedy that only those who had followed him for 3 decades knew. Snoop Dogg, whom the U.S. had idolized, was never permitted to be unhappy. Others laugh at you, but no one sees your anguish. Surprise came from that hazardous cliff. Because when you're on the brink of collapse and suppressing your anguish, you may either give up or change. Even at 54, after a turbulent life, Snoop selected the second option. 5. Transformation. It's common to think of Snoop Dogg as a jokester who can light up any room. In reality, this image has bound him to a mask. America doesn't realize that calling you Uncle Hip Hop and the coolest man alive makes you a man who can't sigh, shake, or falter. Behind that airy smile is Calvin, a struggling father trying to keep his family together, and Snoop Dogg, a national icon and face of dozens of advertising contracts. While Calvin's loss, fatigue, and dread are luxuries in Hollywood, Snoop Dogg is an asset. In recent years, he still leant back in talk programs and delivered jokes that made the audience laugh, but no one saw his hands gripping under the table, as if struggling to maintain calm. A tall man in black spectacles smiles and turns the camera, but that's only half the story. He spent the rest of the time in his hotel room at 3 a.m. with a busy production schedule and contracts to sign, but his heart was at the ICU, where his daughter was struggling to breathe. People think he's chill because he wants to be. He's chilling because the contract mandates it, the sponsor needs that image, and a sad Snoop Dogg may wreck a marketing effort. A drawback of the mythology. Cooler means less right to be weak. The coolest man alive. Though remarkable, it felt like a curse to him. People don't believe immortals feel agony. When you're continually making people happy, no one asks if you're okay. When America was used to Snoop Dogg throwing a joke that made the studio laugh, who would accept Calvin, the man quivering from losing his brother, exhausted from his daughter's exhaustion, trapped between laughter and grief, attempting to swallow? Artists may find the cruelest thing is living in that dazzling light, even when their heart wants to dim to rest. However, the 1996 trial and 2024 punches prompted him to make the hardest transformation. Snoop altered unexpectedly. Death is no longer glorified like in the old days. He discusses forgiveness in life, ways to keep families together during storms. After 1996, he changed course. After facing the prospect of losing his child and brother, his years-old pledge became a reality. Calvin, not Snoop, decided not to allow violence, hatred, or fame take them all. Many thought his reggae and gospel work was a visual trick. Its therapy is revealed when you delve further. Survivors self-heal this manner. Calvin found comfort in slow tunes, the trembling cadence of a church organ, and prayers he had never spoken aloud on flights, shootings, and busy stages. If rap saved him in Long Beach, faith kept him alive in his 50s. Strangely, pain taught him more than celebrity. Life is too short for grudges. His losses in recent years have left him little time to detest anyone. He tells himself, "I don't have as much time as I imagined," every time he leaves a loved one. After that, he reconciled with his enemies, battled less, argued less, and let his ego less rule his life. Things outsiders perceive seem mature are self-defense. Those who suffer most are typically kindest. That's why Snoop went from survivor to guide. He visited his junior studio to warn against celebrity traps, not to brag. He talked about exploitative contracts, rapid money, but even faster risks. people that change when you become famous, and the price no one talks about when the spotlight shines on you. The wisdom came from tears, not books. Not a legendary rapper's words, but of a man who has lost practically everything. That was his turning point from gang runaway. Calvin guided a new generation to avoid his mistakes, which nearly killed him. He went from a threat to America to a speaker on discipline, family, and kindness. Only those who've fallen may grasp this arc. Despite all that suffering, duty, and expectation, 54-year-old Snoop Dogg no longer cares about Grammys charts or records. He worries about whether his work makes anyone's life better. The genuine legacy is that someone who was once in darkness can now illuminate others. Because ultimately, that adjustment helped him progress. It also leaves a legacy greater than any Hollywood Golden Trophy. 6. Legacy of pain. After almost 3 decades in the spotlight, people are used to seeing an eternal laid-back sniffer dog with a half-smile who makes every moment a cultural icon. Hidden beneath the million-view crip walks and comments that made America chuckle were memories the press never mentioned. Broken childhood wounds persisted until 54. Ironically, his struggles, which once defined his survival, have now provided the foundation for a legacy no other rapper has achieved. Snoop has invested time and money in the Snoop Youth Football League since 2005, surprising everyone. It began with a few hundred inner-city children. 20 years later, a football shirt and a guy who supported them helped almost 60,000 youth avoid gangs. This philanthropic movement isn't glamorous for Snoop. He repays his childhood debt this way. He was forced onto the streets by fixing the years. No flashy hashtags, top programs, or flash. Only one silent promise existed. I used to get lost, you don't. Then Extraordinary Stars, a program for disabled kids, originated from personal suffering. Corey, the daughter with lupus since childhood, took depression medicine and had days she couldn't get out of bed. Snoop knows what it's like to worry as your child weakens. His sense of helplessness inspired him to build a playground for society's weakest kids. He couldn't repair his daughter's sorrow, but he could make a world for her and other children. Ironically, a 90s criminal hero became a national treasure during the 2024 Paris Olympics. This was a survivor's journey from a safe house to carrying the Olympic torch in front of millions, not a rapper's comeback. He went across Paris with a pleasant smile that warmed players and fans. No longer cultural outsider. He was America's bridge, humor, and breath. Snoop slows and relaxes at 54. His voice was soothing and warm, like he had survived too many frigid winds. But within that slowness is a tranquility only those who have experienced sorrow can appreciate. He no longer hides or displays his past. He utilizes it to love more, forgive more, and help the next generation walk safer. Disaster stung, but didn't break him. Just makes you choose kindness over hate. Perhaps that's why Snoop Dogg's tragedy is devastating and lovely in a human way. Someone who has experienced much, but practices kindness. A person who has suffered a lot, but still protects children. For that reason, Snoop's narrative doesn't end sad. This quiet win was for a man who never let darkness define him. This movie presents facts, analysis, and comments based on information. Production, the content may change and should not be regarded a forecast. Stories of endurance, legacy, and truth still to be discovered. Explore some of our top recommended videos now playing.